let's start with the reality of what we have in service providers. We started off, you love us as a supplier, you love the fact that we are organized and we have lots of silos within the service providers. We have silos on retail, we have silos on the enterprise side, and we have silos for wholesale. But even within that, we also have a transport silo, we have a wireless silo, we have an access silos, and so on. And it gives you opportunity to sell us to all these different places, okay? Now, the problem is that, as the gentleman from CenturyLink talked about earlier this morning, problem is that we all go back to IT and say, hey, we need to manage this brand new switch that is great that we just bought here. Okay, so then we go, to which system should we connect it to, and to which system back up there, and to which billing systems, and to which, performance management system, fault management system, and so on, and we have loads of those as well. So this is basically what's happening right now. And for every dollar that you charge us, 80 cents of that dollar gets spent on integration. This is the integration tax, and that is the reality. Now, we talked about virtualization, right? Oops. We talked about virtualization. And every time we have a new switch coming in, we have to think about the IT system, as the gentleman from CenturyLink said, and the IT system, they all have to know all of the resource. So the conversation goes like this: okay, we want to do network slicing, right? So I assemble people from the access, from the edge, from the transport, from this, from that, and the IT. And I say, okay, so what do I need to manage from you? What do I need to manage from you? What are the things that I need configuring? What are the connectivity I need? What are the access points I need configuring? And that's regardless of virtualized or not, okay? And all of our IT system need to know every single thing that needs to be configured. And so anytime we want to exit anything, we are so afraid that we're going to break something in one of those mesh spaghetti here that we never exit anything. And so our budget from an IT perspective gets spent on maintenance, not innovation, not creating the brand new shiny thing, but on innovation, right? So let's talk about virtualization now. Oh, we were adding virtualization. We thought we were going to save money. Well, let's just see. We're adding more spaghetti slices in here, right? And now, if you think about the fact that virtualization is actually in every one of our silos, well, we'll have virtualized stuff in the access, we'll have virtualized in our transport, we'll have virtualization in our IP, we'll have virtualization. And so we're just getting more and more and more mass if we continue in the same way that we were doing it, okay? We want to change. We want to think about a new way of doing this. And we've embarked into Telstra Network 2020 architecture. And our architecture is actually very flat. But it's very different because we do not want to have any one of our IT systems anymore understanding anything about resources. No more resource level in the IT systems. What do we want? We want every single domain, and today our domains are equivalent to our organization because it's too hard to change things. It's already hard for them to think that they're in domains now. We actually want them to think about offering services. How many of you have heard of network as a service? Right? That was even before SaaS was even, or PaaS was even created, right? How many, a long, long time ago, people were saying, service provider, come on, offer your network functions as a service, right? Expose your services and sell that. This is finally what we are doing. But that means re-architecting. That means changing the way we are doing today. And it's not easy. It's not easy to change the mentality. And we need the industry to think that way and to change with us, because guess what? We are at the mercy of our suppliers. Because if our suppliers do not give us the switches with the Nord-bound interface to expose the data, then how can I expose services from each of my domains, right? So I want my transport group, I want my access group, I want my wireless group, and I want everybody to expose their services, but I want those services to be granular enough that I make reuse of these things, okay? So when I go for my next project, now it's going to be a network slice again, the conversation should go like this. You from transport, okay, so the services you're exposing, can I just reuse what you have? Or do I need to add an extra attribute or parameter in the payload of my API? Or do you need to expose a new service, right? Access, same question. Transport, same question, right? That's the way we need to go, because then what you're selling us is suddenly, it's 80% is going to go towards innovation of that $1 versus 20% for the integration tax. Because we're hoping that by using the same standard Nord-bound APIs, and the only thing is going to be inside that payload that's going to change for whether it's going to be a transport or wireless or whatever, that's where we need to go. And we're not the only one talking about it, but I think we're the only one that's actually come out and say it that way. I mean, Orange, with their factory, they actually only want their factory to expose services. Vodafone, even for their domains in the regions, they only want the region to expose services as well. So even though we're not necessarily saying it the same way, I think we want the same thing out of our suppliers that make up what we're doing in terms of our domains and how we expose things. Now, if you think about it, I do have a third-party ecosystem service where we want to go. As for other service providers in here, I, from Telstra, would like to be able to go and request a VM from you, and then I put out my VNFs and I extend. I ask for your VM and I ask you for the access to connect my enterprise, and you can do the same back towards me. So we need to speak the same language, right? But this is how we can suddenly automate and extend our networks, helping us to compete more effectively with the other guys. All right? So as service providers, this is where I want to go. Other third-party ecosystem services here could be my Microsoft Azure. If I'm going to be maybe taking a Fortinet firewall off the Microsoft Azure, why can't I have Microsoft Azure here with the same Nord-bound API exposing from Service Catalog, exposing, you know, Fortinet and whatever other VNF that they have, and when I make a product that I'm selling, then I could just pick that up, instantiate it from their domain, and then combine it with the rest of my services that's going to be end-to-end that I'm going to be selling across all of my other domains. That's what I'm talking about. This is how automation can really happen, okay? That's where we want to go. This is what we're starting our transformation. We had the last 2 weeks, I was in Melbourne training our people on APIs. I need all my domains to talk about API, to talk about services. What are the services they're going to expose and things like that. We're at the start of our journey, but it's an important journey because we believe that this is where we're going to be able to innovate. And that's the easiest way to do it, because transformation is actually not bad doing it from here instead of a supplier coming here and trying to sell me another layer of orchestration to orchestrate on top and have like 7 layers. We call them Lord of the Ring orchestrator, to try to do automation. We don't want that. We want flat, right? We want service exposure. That's where we want to go. That's where we are starting to go. Now, I did have a composite domain. A lot of people ask me, well, where does the orchestration happen? Because orchestration still needs to happen. And This was before. So if you look at the left-hand side, this was my orchestration before. My IT needed to understand an internet security service, right? Needed to know about what to configure in the CPE, what to configure in the access, what to configure in the application, put that all into the product composition, and then when it did a fulfillment, it needed to go through and then do one after the other, and it needed to know every single resource that needed to happen into the IT system. This is where we're going. Now, I've separated the access because let's say we don't own every access. Let's say we own an access somewhere else, or we partner for the access. In Australia, we have DNB & Co. For some of the access. So let's say we separate the access, but everything that's in gray, I'm going to task from the IT system, I'm actually going to have an end-to-end product composition is going to be for the Internet Security Service. It's going to be made up of an access, Internet Security Network Service gray, and that's it. That's what I know from IT. Now, I send that to my API gateway, that's the gray box here, and then it knows how to do the composite towards the CPE, the aggregation, the core. And it basically passes on all of the requests of the attribute that needs to be configured, because these resources still need to be configured. But I can capture that and then send that request individually to each of the different domains. And then they decapsulate it, and they decide what they need to do with it. And with the new way of API, polymorphic APIs and so on, where we do intent-based, where we send out, okay, you want to know, where to go next, what to configure, and I change that automatically, or I can just change the source file. This is going to make our lives so much easier. No more knowledge within IT. This is where we're going. So we're making contribution to go, for the industry to go this way. So we're working with the TM Forum. We made a contribution for having a component suite, a network as a service component suite. Because, if I say we're using TM Forum APIs northbound of our domain, TM Forum like to say, oh, we have 50 APIs. Well, that's great, but what do you actually need? And so we're going to create a bundle of them, and basically, as a supplier, I'm going to ask you, okay, well, do you support the NaaS API component suite? And then you'll know that you'll need to just basically support these functions, and that's all we'll need from you. And we'll have the Swagger files already created for that. Then we're also trying to standardize the definition of a domain, because today, I have that issue today. I did a domain assessment of all of our different large organizations. I said, well, what do you think a domain is, and how many services are you going to expose from that? Or even from within wireless, how many domains do you have? And from the IP fix, how many services and domains are you going to have? And they don't know. They have no clue. But, it's the start of our journey. They have to learn, so we're going to start with one service, and they're going to see what is the maximum or the best way of service exposure that they need so that it can get reused more often. So that's where we need to go. And I need to help them by telling them what they need to have within a domain, right? So the fact that they need to have a service catalog, I need what, right? They don't know service catalog. They've never really had to deal with exposure in the past. So service catalog, you need to support TMF 633 for the service catalog, and go, okay. But we want them. Virtualization is taking us to that phase because we have closed loop now. And why would we want to have closed loop, living somewhere else? The domain's going to be able to take care of there's a problem happening within that domain. Let's try to solve it first instead of sending everything to the next layer, to the next layer. So the domains are becoming more intelligent. They're adding virtualization, so things are changing anyway. So it's a great impetus to do a change of the architecture overall anyway. So this is why we are doing it. And so they'll need inventory. They'll need to keep track of their service instance inventory, which they never did before. They might have had a resource inventory, which they'll still need to keep, because they are responsible for making sure that the service gets generated. So they have to manage the resources and things like that. Operate, assure, expose, develop, grow, exit services, and so on. These are all functions that each of the domains are responsible for. Now, I mean, it is their prerogative to re-outsource that back to IT. I mean, as long as it gets done. So that's what is important, is they know where it gets done. We've started. I mean, we are starting our journey, and we did that proof of concept, at least from a fulfillment point of view. We showed how services could be exposed northbound of Sienna Blue Planet, okay? And we showed with the TMF APIs and with a non-TMF API, and show how two service provider, they basically simulated as it was two service provider requesting a service across, and how this can be done using TM Forum APIs and so on. So yes, these things we are moving, and we want the industry to move along with us. And in terms of ETSI ZSM, which we had a session yesterday, again, we've made a contribution to talk about reusing those APIs. So the fact that we're exposing things doesn't mean that suddenly we have automation all sorted out, right? We still need to have things happening in a more automated fashion. The fact that we have APIs just means that it should make things more universal, more common, and we speak the same language. And what we want is for all of you to think about innovation and what sort of automation can then be achieved, leveraging the data that is being exposed northbound. Okay, so that's where we need to go. As well, within the domain, even more automation needs to happen. And so we believe there is still opportunity for ETSI ZSM to standardize or to look at how we can fully automate things, but leveraging the new ways of working where the domain exposes things northbound. We definitely believe that there's a benefit for everyone in here. Suppliers just need to focus on innovation, not integration. You'll get more money for your buck in terms of your innovation than spending or charging us so much more money to try to do the integration, or having another service system integrator beside us to do that. So the budget that we have will go more towards your innovation. And then if we can have like a TMF ETOM map like we've had in the past, and say, hey, I fit in here, I can help you doing this and this and this, then it's a good way to go forward. The network team, they'll expose atomic services that can be reused by partner. As I was talking maybe with other service providers, we can share things if we expose similar things and stuff. And then the networks will finally evolve independently from the IT system. It is so taxing. Every time we do a software upgrade anywhere, whether it's an IT system or whether it's a network system, we have to retest everything. It's a nightmare. By having northbound APIs, it's really going to help us there. And then the IT teams, well, they'll start focusing on digitization, customer experience, and so on. They won't have to learn the language of the network, and they won't have to try to support every single resource selection that the network teams will be making. So, any question? I think I have 1 minute left.
I think I asked the same question yesterday. Looking from OSS and BSS, would OSS be providing this level of API or services to others, or OSS would be the user of these services? You suggested not to put any services, or to suggest any services for OSS level.
So the orchestration will be done at either sitting above the network, so the network will do the orchestration, or you can still have the IT system do some of the orchestration. For example, if I do a managed CPE with a connectivity service, then the shipping and maybe the sending of an installer, and then the connectivity might be done all differently, and it could be orchestrated by the IT system. But the fact that the connectivity and maybe the virtual firewalls or things like that, that could be done from the orchestrator that would belong to the domain side. So the domains today don't really want to get involved with the logistics of shipping or the logistic to sending an installer and things like that. So this will probably stay more in the IT domains. Other functions such as maybe fault management, performance management, and so on, I think we are still looking at where does it fit. And as I said, maybe at first, they might decide that we're going to keep using the way we're using it today in terms of sending all our alarms and so on. But the more you're going to move into virtualization, the more things are going to change anyway, and the more you'll have more policy-based, and that's going to be more in the domain. And then whatever falls through that you can't solve, whatever happened, then you'll send out a trouble ticket, northbound for the IT system to then handle. And so we're moving that slowly, and that's the beauty, I believe, of our transformation, is that it's not a big, cut over. Everything can be done slowly, and we can migrate things in a more slower way and test things as we move along, and then decide to make a change as to the level of granularity of the servers being exposed and things like that. But I think if we set the infrastructure as to how we're going to communicate and the fact that we're going to remove all of the knowledge from the IT system, that's already a big plus to move forward. Thank you.